and I want you to talk about that. I want you to really dig into, if you feel like we've gotten enough of the background,
definitely,
that there is a non-obvious, right? It's almost hidden way that human beings' minds can be hacked, and you call it malware, or
cognitive malware.
Cognitive malware. Thank you. And that really is the direction that I think. I mean, you have notes, but I want to make sure that we hit them, hit the topics correctly. Malware. Talk about malware. What is malware for a human being? I mean, well, let's talk about malware. Let's define it first.
Absolutely.
What is malware, and how does it impact computer systems? And then we'll move on to human beings.
To me, and anybody watching from MIT can update or revise this. This may not be the textbook definition, but to me as a practitioner in the field, I would define malware as any software capable of exploiting a vulnerability in an information system to get it to process information or execute code that maybe doesn't belong to that system, or carry out ideas that are not that of the user or the machine, in particular for a malicious purpose.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, it's fun. We talked at the bar about Pokemon Go. Well, it may be considered malicious to drivers. The whole idea is everybody downloaded it willingly. They played the game, and then everybody seemed to get bored with it and move on pretty quickly.
Right.
But I mean, that's an idea that you brought up that was really brilliant, of how technology can hit a tipping point very, very fast, and it's changed our whole world. But at the same time, there's this weird distinction of malware of it's without consent. It's
right.
without the consent of that user or
right.
information system.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're consenting to what they think is one thing, but it's really something else. I think I'm opening a resume, but really there's a script in it
Right.
that then communicates somewhere I don't approve of and turns my computer into, say, a botnet that does somebody's evil bidding for me.
And it's almost unknown to the user. The user has no idea that when they clicked on the link, or they clicked on cryptography, if they click on picture because they want to see the JPEG or whatever, and it's embedded, and that's a real danger, and very few people know about it. But we kind of go through life, I think, for the most part, a little less knowledgeable about how our own systems work.
Yeah.
Not to mention our own brains, right? I mean, that's a whole nother topic, but we don't understand, I think, really how exploitable our systems are.
No, it's really interesting. So, and the parallels begin at the vulnerability level. So in an information system, there will be vulnerabilities for, say, Microsoft products, Apple products, Adobe products, whoever's products. They all have them.
Right.
And it's interesting, the conundrum there is the systems are so complex. No matter what you do, you cannot be certain that there's not some sort of malicious exploitable vulnerability that can be taken advantage of. Well, we have exploitable vulnerabilities in us too. I mean, at the most fundamental level, we have the amygdala hijack. The idea that a bit of cognitive code, an idea, if I said something that infuriated you, your mental higher level processing would shut down, and what some friends of mine like to call the monkey brain in the martial arts community,
right?
It would take over.
That's precisely what happens.
And your face would turn flush. Your pupils would either dilate or constrict. Your processing of food and digestion would shut down to push all blood to what you'd need to either fight or run.
Fight or flight, yeah.
But the problem is, and many great books have been written on the topic, so I won't bother to index them all, but the problem is we really don't need to fight or flight in a boardroom or when we're at a political rally. We actually need to be using our cognitive processing, the most powerful parts of our brain that allow us to rationally process information, and we need that blood in those parts of the brain, not in my arms, so that I can go, pound something or climb something.
Right. The oxygen is needed in the brain, and the blood flow to the brain for that kind of rationale to actually come to I would say reasonable conclusion to whatever is being said or whatever's happening. And what you're saying is, it's sounds a little bit like being triggered.
Right.
So the amygdala hijack, as you call it, I've also heard it called being triggered.
Totally.
Right, and it could be
same.
you can be triggered by any number of things. I often get triggered by little puppy dog, and I get little Terry, and it's stupid, but that's a trigger for real.
Definitely.
And there are other triggers that are out there that are a little bit more malicious than that.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting is just like your Apple system may have different vulnerabilities than your Windows system or your iPhone or Android.
Right.
The vulnerability, there will always be vulnerabilities there, and different pieces of malware or cognitive malware will execute on each of us differently.
Cool.
Your soft spot may be puppies, mine might be babies, somebody else's might be something else, and we can be triggered either direction. That vulnerability could be something that we like, or it could be something that we fear or that we don't understand, or perhaps a conversation we grew up with in our own internal operating system that we don't even know is there.
Yeah.
Like the old, like an old driver or part of Windows that's been there so long, everybody who knows about it or wrote it's retired, but now that's exploited, and you end up with this new malicious output of that.
Yeah.
It can be the same with some idea I grew up with. I haven't thought about it for years, but then maybe you say something, you understand that, and you carefully craft a message that perhaps builds on that assumption and maybe builds it somewhere I wouldn't get to on my own. Interesting.
And then it gets introduced.
Exactly.
So, and that I think is the key topic that's upcoming. But I kind of want to, I would like to take a moment and talk about that programming.
Definitely.
Because as you said, if we were to look at ourselves as computers and human beings being computers, right? When a new computer comes online, it has to be programmed.
Definitely.
Well, we're the programmers. And unfortunately, some of the damage that was done in our programming gets passed along.
It does.
Just like, somebody who's turning up new desktops, and maybe they have, a batch file that's corrupt on purpose.
Right.
Or maybe it was by accident.
By
it could have been corrupted by accident. So imagine, you have this beautiful little baby, and this is your new human online. It's just come online. It's sucking its thumb, or its mom's, it's got to eat. And now we begin to teach it things. And as it goes through life, it's not just the programmer that teaches, because this is a self-learning computer. This thing will learn on its own. And it may even come up with some really strange conclusions.
Definitely.
Based on some things that have nothing to do with reality, nothing more than just can turn it internal. I'm bad.
Right.
That can actually be I'm bad, or I'm not good enough, or any number of others I'm nots. Speak on that just for a moment, because I think that's an interesting topic.
Definitely. I mean, that's what you bring up is brilliant and well informed. I mean, when I just even look at my own kids, I look at and even see in their own programming, ooh, I didn't mean to teach you that. Right. Or, oh, yeah, that maybe I've been a little too hard on you on this topic, or wow, I introduced that idea and I really didn't mean to.
Right.
Or the fact that drinking coffee for my older daughter is her the biggest rite of passage. It's like
it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste that great until you're like 30.
Yeah, exactly. So we look at these elements of programming, or that time you catch a toddler playing with a steak knife they got off the table, and as a parent, we freak out, we panic, we shout or overreact, and then that forms, like you said, I'm bad, I'm wrong, or I need to be afraid of this, that, or the other.
Right. Knives scare me.
Right.
Right. Yep.
And
water scares me. I'll give you an example of one of the things that I love the water. Raised in California, I surfed a little bit when I was a kid. I'm not a great surfer, but I did. And I became afraid of water at the age of about 6. My mom took me to go see Jaws.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 6-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I see Jaws. We'll just leave that lay. Then right after that, Mom says, let's go to the lake. Okay, so we go to the lake. And then my Aunt Jeannie, who was with us, she was in her 20s. I'm out there playing in the lake, doing my thing, being a little kid, and all of a sudden I feel something grab my leg and tow me under.
Oh, no.
Scared the living crap out of me. And for a while, I was afraid of the water. Now,
Definitely.
that was malware. First of all, it was embedded with the movie,
Yep.
right? And then there was an event that shored that up a little bit. So explain to me, how do you break that, first of all?
Well, that's a really, really profound question, because on one hand, the first thing I would do is draw parallels to a science that we've been using to invest in great R&D, many companies for many years now, which is, how to deal with that in information systems. And billions are being spent on it, both on the attack side of how to exploit these vulnerabilities and on the defense side of how to shore them up or prevent exploitation.
Right.
So while there's parallels we can draw, it is important to footnote that the problem hasn't been solved in either realm yet. So
Thanks for being honest.
The goal here, more than to offer a complete and comprehensive solution, although there are a few things I think we can do, is to open up a dialogue and get the great minds of the world thinking through a lens of how we can leverage the parallels and come up with ways to inoculate ourselves. But
certainly it would be easy to implement the 3 laws, right?
Totally.
Okay, let's implement the 3 laws, but we don't have 3 laws. I mean, human beings actually don't have those 3 laws. We're not programmed that way. We just kind of we learn it as we go. So it's great that we don't have an actual solution for that yet, because it gives us something to work on.
Definitely.
I love that. I love to be able to find something that, okay, there's a need here. Let's see if we can address it.